Hi everyone, I'm Soumya, a software engineer and an educator. Welcome to module 1 of the interview series. In this module, I will explain you the important interview questions of Kotlin. Let's start. The very first, what are the various data types available in Kotlin, and we have to explain them. So if you are already from the tech background, you are a software engineer, or you have learned any programming language for that matter, maybe Java, C++, so you will be able to, I think, answer this question very fluently, because the data types available in Kotlin are very much similar to as in any other object-oriented programming language, right? So boolean, character, number, string and array, these are the main 5 data types in Kotlin. It's very much same as in any other programming language, right? These are the kind of data that we deal with, because in the real world, if you go on creating maybe some real world software or anything for that matter, so these are the 5 types of data that you will get. Either you will get some numbers, you will get characters, you will get a string, that is array of character, right? You will get arrays to deal with, or boolean, that is true or false, right? So when we talk about number specifically, then numbers are also of variety of types, right? Like byte, short, int, long, double, float. These are the kind of category of numbers are divided in these 6 types. If it is there to deal with a large number, some large value, then we have to use these data types for it. If it's a small number, right, if it is integer, then int is there. So these are the kind of data types that are available in Kotlin. And now if we talk about the going deep in Kotlin, how they are and how do we assign variables, all those stuff. So in Kotlin, the type of the variable, like what this one is, this is of type int, this is of type double, this is character, this is boolean, and this one is a string, right? So in Kotlin, the type of the variable is decided by its value. Even if you don't specify that I'm creating a variable of a particular type, then only it will kind of auto understand. Like, let me show you what I mean to say. There are 2 ways of doing this. Like if you are creating, let's say, this variable my num, right? You are creating my num variable. So either you can tell it that, okay, you can tell the compiler that this is of type int, and then maybe give some value 5, 8 or anything, some integer value, right? Or apart from that, you can do this thing as well. If you are unsure, or maybe you want it to auto detect, so if you do my num is equal to let's say 9.85 or something like that, so it will auto understand that this is of type double, right? This is of type double and not of int. If it is only 9, then it will auto understand that this value, this data is of type integer. So this is very important. In Kotlin, it kind of auto understands at the time of initialization. If you are initializing a variable, if you are giving value to a variable which is true or false, then the type of the data is obviously boolean. If it is a string, like maybe my name, or let's say if we are giving var name is equal to scalar, let's say, right? So here in this case, obviously we know that the data type of this variable name is a string. It's not character, because string are in double quotes always, remember. These small things are kind of good to know, and interviewer may ask you about these small things, like if we are putting something, if we are putting array of character in double quotes or something like that, is it a string or not? These are very fundamental stuff, but you must know this, right? Moving ahead, we talked about this. This is already this is what I covered. Okay, you can do it this way as well. You can tell the type as well while initializing it. Here we were not doing that. Here we were just giving it the value, so it can auto understand as well. If you want, you can do it this way as well. You can tell it that my text is of type string, my letter is of type character, and it is in single quotes. See, this one is in double quotes, right? You are telling my boolean is of type boolean, this is of type double, my num is of type int. You can explicitly declare as well. You can explicitly tell it that, hey variable, you are of type char, boolean, or whatsoever. Perfect. These are some built-in types of numbers data type in Kotlin. Okay, perfect. And moving ahead, this is your question number 2. How are variables declared in Kotlin? What are the different types of variable in Kotlin? So I think you should be able to answer this if you have seen my basic tutorial on Kotlin, or maybe mobile application development as well. So let me tell you, every variable in Kotlin must be declared before it can be used. Obviously, I mean, that's the thumb rule of programming, right? So an attempt to use a variable without declaring it results in syntax error, right? If you are using some variable, let's say you are using num in your project and you haven't declared it, so that might result in syntax error. So the type of data you are authorized to put in the memory address is determined by the variable type declaration. Okay, and the type of variable can be determined from its initialized value in like case of local variable, as we saw. Like we can decide the type of the data based on the value that we are going to give to the data. For example, if let's say I say val marks is equal to 95, so here it's auto understood that the data type of marks is int, right? It is int. So yes, I think you already know how do we declare variables. I told you just now the significance as well of declaring variables in Kotlin. I mean, if you use a variable without declaring, then what will happen? The project will crash, the application will crash, it will not run. It will say that undeclared, or unknown variable, something like that. It will throw error like that. So I'll create a new file in my ID and I'll show you what exactly error you will get. Sometimes it happen like we forget to create to declare the variable and we get error later in the program. So the way to create variable, it's very simple. Var and val, these are the two keywords that we use to create variables in Kotlin. So this is var and this is val. What is the difference? It's important to know. It's very important to know, I would say. So the syntax is pretty much similar for both of these. So we have to first write the keyword. Okay, we will write var, or if it is val, then val, and after that the name of the variable. Okay, we will write here var name, that is name of the variable. Okay, it can be anything, like it can be marks, student name, or college, anything for that matter. And here as well we will have var name. So this is a keyword, okay, but these are the ones that are here. These are on us. We have to give some value, right? I mean, we have to think of some meaningful name. Okay, after that what you have to do? You have to do is equal to, and you can give it any name. Okay, you can give a name in double quotes. Okay, so this will be of type string because we are giving it a value which is of type string, which is because it is under double quotes. Okay, so syntax pretty much simple. Keyword var or val, and then name of the variable is equal to, and then whatever value you want to give to it. The syntax is very clean and neat. No confusion till now, right? No confusion till now. And one more interesting thing here is that the difference is important to know. I mean, in interview you might be like they start with the fundamental, very easy questions, right? That's why in this one I'm talking about very easy ones. So what's the difference between var and val? So var, if we are creating a variable, if I am creating a variable using this keyword, using var keyword, then if later on in the project, if later on in the program I want to change the value, like let's say right now the value is a, but later on I want to say var name is equal to b. So I can do that, okay. But in case of val, if the value right now is x and later on if I want to do y, if I want to give var name the value y, then in that case this will throw an error. Why? Because val is immutable. Val is immutable. Always remember this. Always remember this. Var is mutable. This is the biggest difference between both of this. Remember today onwards, like keep it in your mind. Val is like final keyword in Java. You can't change once you give it some value. If there are some stuff, if there are data that you feel like you will need to change later in the program, in the project, then don't declare it with the val keyword. Otherwise it will become permanent. Val is permanent. It cannot be changed. Okay. So yes, the main difference is this only. Val and var. Okay. Mutable and immutable. It can't be changed. Val cannot be changed. So now what is the difference between the variable declaration with val and const? Now this is interesting. I just told you that val is immutable. If we if we have some data which we don't want to change its value, if there are some data like that, then we will use val keyword, like val name is equal to ABC. Okay, all right, then I cannot change name to XYZ or something else in the future in the project. And const as well, the name is somewhere self-explanatory. Const means something which is constant, which cannot be changed. So this is also kind of looks like it is also immutable, right? But they are asking, the interviewer is asking you the difference between val and const. Then what you will say? So let me tell you, both the variables that are declared with val and const are immutable in nature. They are both immutable in nature, but the value of the const variable, the value of the const variable must be known at the compile time, must be known at the compile time, whereas the value of the val variable can be assigned at runtime also, This is the biggest difference between both of these. Like for const, it is must that the value of the variable must be known at the compile time. Value must be known at the compile time. Okay, but in case of val, even if you give it value at the runtime, then also is fine. Okay, then also it will work smooth. So yes, that's the basic difference between mutable and like both of these are immutable only. Mutable is var, like if we declare something using var, its value can be changed. But val and const, both of these, let me summarize it all here. So var is completely different, right? It is mutable. If you declare something using var, it can be changed. If we talk about val and const, so these are immutable. Value cannot be changed, yeah. But the difference between both of these is the value of the const variable must be known, must be declared at the compile time. But in case of val, it can be done during runtime as well. Runtime is also fine, right? Perfect. Now, very interesting question. Why should we use Kotlin? So Kotlin is a programming language that is compatible with Java and other languages as well. One of its primary feature is is productive programming. It provides many ways to reuse code. Between multiple platforms. Its clean language design and powerful features offer an accessible user experience, UI UX. Okay, it offers an amazing UI UX. So it is concise. Okay, it is concise, it is null safe. Like in Java, if you have been working in Java, you would be knowing this thing very well, that in Java we used to suffer a lot with the null safety exceptions, with the errors that we used to get because some value is null, right? So that issue is gone here in Kotlin. It is very concise, sweet, and interpretable as well. So how to ensure null safety in Kotlin? Another very interesting concept. I mean, this is one of the biggest advantages, one of the biggest features of Kotlin. Okay, so if we talk about null safety, yeah, null safety, one of the major advantage of using Kotlin is null safety only. In Java, if you access some null variable, then you will get a null pointer exception. Your application, your project will crash, right? So the following, like, I'll show you. I'll write some piece of code here. So the following code that I'm going to write here, it will like give you an idea how do we manage null safety, how do we manage null exceptions in Kotlin. So if I write something like var, okay, name is equal to scalar, okay, and later on I give it value, I change the value of name to null, and if I do print ln, that is print something, I want to know the length of name dot length is inbuilt method, right? So name dot length, I want to know the length of the string name. Okay, so here it will throw error right now because I have given it value null. But in Kotlin there is a beautiful way to prevent from such null errors. Normally, if let's say we are following the old methodologies, old techniques, then obviously this piece of code would have thrown error. Okay, but in case like let's say I am doing something like this, like here we have dot, okay, I mean name dot length right now. If I put question mark here, if I tell it that first check if the value is like null or not null, if the value is null, it will take care of it. It will not lead to crashing of the application. It is question marking it if name is null or not. If it's null, obviously it will not run the method on it because it's null, so length will obviously be 0, right? So that's very interesting thing. You can use the question mark, it's null safety operator, null question mark dot, and then you can call anything you want to call. And if let's say you were doing something like var name, this is of type
string, and let's say if I'm writing my name here, so here as well, like when you are giving it the type, the data type, you are telling it that you are of type string. So here as well you can put this question mark. Okay, this is null safety. It will help us only, us means developers only, right? It will prevent unnecessary application crashes. Okay, so what are data classes in Kotlin? We have to explain with proper examples. Okay, so let's do it. So data class, let me tell you, data classes, the name is self-explanatory. These are those classes which are made to store some data. These are there to store some data. So in Kotlin it is marked as like data, like we generally create classes like this, class keyword, okay, name of the class, let's say developer is the name of the class, then some parameters like maybe val, name of type string, then maybe val age of type int, right? So this is, I mean, let me erase this one. And here, so let's say if this is our class, and then we have the body of the class, And if we want to make it data class, okay, data class means obviously the class which is there to just store some data, nothing unnecessary, okay, then we will put a new keyword here, that is data keyword, okay, data, and then the normal way of creating the class. Normally we create class this way, right? We have class keyword, name of the class, and then in parenthesis we put the parameters of the class. So apart from that, let me tell you one more interesting thing. So when we mark a class as data class, okay, let me write this with pencil. So when we mark a class data class, so you don't have to implement or create the functions like we used to do in Java, like equals or toString, copy. I mean, you can tell this if the interviewer asks you this question, like what are the data classes in Kotlin. The first thing you are going to tell is the data classes are those classes which are there to store some data, and we use the keyword data before the usual like methodology of creating the class, like class name here and then parenthesis. So before this we put the keyword data. And apart from that, data classes are those in which you don't have to implement or create the functions like we used to do in Java, equals, toString, copy, etc. The compiler automatically creates these internally, and that's how it leads to clean space, less piece of code, less lines of code, and a beautiful experience of developing the application, of writing code in Kotlin. Okay, and that's how like developers are so much liking Kotlin these days instead of Java. Like Java is obviously, I would say, irreplaceable, but again, I mean, Kotlin is very crisp, simple, and it supports both of these languages can work together in the same project as well. That's the beauty of it, right? What is late init in Kotlin? So here the keyword late init, it is a bit self-explanatory, I would say. If you see, it is made up of two keywords, and this one is very important. This keyword is important, and it is one of the favorites interview questions of interviewer. So late means late, something which is late, which is done later on, right? Which is done later on. Init means initialization. So let's say if I am creating a variable, but in the starting I don't know its value, so I'm telling the variable late init that I will initialize you later on. I will give you a value for sure, but I will give you later on, not right now, because I'm not sure about your value. That is kind of meaning of late init keyword. Let me go into the system and show you. So this is the ID, okay, and here let's say if I want to create a variable about which I'm not sure, I mean, what value should I give to that variable, but I want to use it later, and I want to give it some value later in the project when I will be sure. Okay, so for example, I'm creating here name. It is of type string, but now I don't know what the name is, okay, and I don't want to give empty value or something like that. So for that matter, in such situations, we can, here it is throwing error as well. It is telling that property must be initialized. I mean, you have to initialize, you have to give it some value. Then I will persuade the IDE, I will tell the IDE, hey, please let me go it this way. I want to give some value to name later in my project, later. Okay, so I'll do late init, and now it's gone. So basically by late init, I am telling the ID, I am telling it that hey, like I will give some value to this variable name, which is of type string, but later on in the project. Okay, I can't do it right now because I'm not sure of the value. So maybe here inside the onCreate method, might be that you will be getting the value of the name variable once you enter into this scope in this onCreate method, right? So you can write here, maybe you can give some value yourself, or if you are fetching value somewhere from this overrided function. So override is keyword, fun is keyword, on create is the name of the function. Then inside this, what is this? This is this is a parameter of type bundle. This is name of the parameter. I can name it A as well. Okay, A, B, C, anything. So this is parameter name, and the type of the parameter is bundle. And as you can see, while they are giving the type, the data type to this variable, they have used this null safety thingy, which I taught you just now, like few minutes ago. So that's pretty much it. I hope like things are becoming clearer to you. Now let's go back into the iPad, and I will discuss a few more basic yet very important interview questions with you. So I hope latent it is clear. If it is, just keep telling me things in the comment section. Tell me if latent keyword, it is very important, because if you are going to give interview where your role is a bit related to Kotlin, maybe Android developer, like if you're going to join a software engineer in the Android team of an organization, you must know these basic stuff. These are very important. Okay, so what is Elvis operator in Kotlin? So let me tell you, like in Kotlin, you know that you can like assign null values as well to a variable by using the null safety feature. Okay, null safety property. To check if the value is, let's say, having null value or not, you can either use if else. If the value is null, do this, otherwise do that. Or you can use Elvis operator, which is like this. This is the Elvis operator. Let me explain you with the help of some graphics. I mean, that is better to remember things for a longer period of time. This is the icon, this is kind of symbol of Elvis operator. I mean, if the interviewer asks you this, obviously you have to tell this is how the Elvis operator looks like, and you would have used it, you would have seen this in other programming languages as well. I guess it is in C++ as well. So this is the Elvis operator in action. So val is keyword here, result is the name of the variable, is equal to value 1 or value 2. So if value 1 is not null, if value 1 is not null, then result is assigned its value. Okay, result variable. If the value 1 is null, then it is assigned value 2's value. So it is here basically checking. It is checking here if value 1 is null, then it will assign this value to result. If it is not null, then this value only will be assigned. Okay, so that's how the Elvis operator looks like, and that's how it's used in programming. This is the syntax. You have seen it in action as well, right? Perfect. And moving ahead, explain the various methods to iterate over any data structure in Kotlin with example. So the answer to this is very much similar to any other programming language. Don't go ahead, just pause the video right now, pause the tutorial right now, and tell me in the comments what are the different methods you use to iterate over any data structure. Let's say I have given you an array of integers. Okay, you have 5, 7, 10, 12. You have to iterate on this array of integers. How will you go about it? If you know C++, you know Java, Python, any language for that matter, you would have used at least one or the other way, right? I think most of you would be thinking about for loop, right? For loop. So I mean, the similar way is there in Kotlin as well. You have for, while, or do while in Kotlin. So the syntax for loop looks something like this. If let's say you have the language, language array, which is array of some strings, you can see array of Ruby, Kotlin, Python, Java. So here this is language, which is array of strings. Then you are checking for each item in the language array. You have to print each item, println item. So it will print Ruby, Kotlin, Python, and Java, right? So for item in this language array, you have to print each and every element of the array. Okay, perfect. And if you talk about while and do while, so syntax is very much like in other programming languages. So while this condition is true, you can put some condition here. Keep on executing the body of while. This is the syntax, simple and straightforward syntax of while loop. So for while, you have to put condition, here. Okay, very simple. I mean, while keyword, if the condition is true here, then keep on iterating on the body of the while. And in the same way, if we talk about do while, so for do while as well, keep doing this, do the do while body, keep iterating, keep executing whatever is written inside the do while body while till this condition here is true. While this condition is true, you have to keep iterating over this. All these statements from here till the end, whatever is written here, all these statements you have to keep running, keep iterating while this condition holds true. If it is true, then keep iterating. And in this case, we have the condition check in the beginning only. We check if it is true or not in the starting. If the condition is true, then only we enter the body of the while loop. So let me know, I mean, if you want me to explain, or if you want me to create some simple, some simple projects using the concept of maybe these methods to iterate, or any of these concepts, like if you want me to iterate more on either of these, like Elvis, lateness, or data classes in Kotlin, all of these are very important. Null safety you must know. And why Kotlin? I mean, I think this is one of the most favorite questions of interviewers out there. If you are using Kotlin, they will ask you why not other programming languages which are there in the market. So you must know what to answer. You can share your personalized experience while developing projects using Kotlin. You can share how simple, easy it is, crisp, short, you have, if you have some piece of code in Java which is in 10 lines, you can do the same thing in 4 to 5 lines in Kotlin. So it is concise, and all those stuff you can share. And these are very basic things, where the difference between const and all those stuff, and the keywords that I talked about are very important for Kotlin. So yes, if you have doubts or queries, put them down in the comments, yeah, and I'll try to look at most of them. I'll try to give answer to most of them. And yes, if you are going to give interview for Kotlin, or let's say Android application developer role, then this will be very useful for you. If you are here to revise the concepts and you have your interview for internship or full-time job, anything, then feel free to switch the video to 1.5x so that you can quickly go through all the concepts, all the questions that I will be discussing in here. So the very first one, what are the different types of constructors available in Kotlin? We have to explain them with proper examples. So let me tell you, it's very simple and easy. There are mainly two types. Of constructors in Kotlin. Number one is primary constructor. Okay, number one is your primary constructor, and the second one is secondary constructor. Very easy to memorize as well. Primary constructor and secondary constructor. Okay, clear? Two constructors are here in Kotlin: primary constructor and secondary constructor. So primary constructor, it is a concise way to initialize a class, and secondary constructor, it allows you to put some additional initialization logic in it. Let me give you quick examples so that you can explain the same in your interview as well. So if we talk about the first one, that is your primary constructor. So if we talk about primary constructors, okay, Primary constructors are most common in Kotlin. Secondary constructors are very commonly used. They are not so common. I mean, if anyone asks you like what is the most commonly used, then primary constructor are the one. And yes, it is part of the class header itself. Let's say you are creating a class person, okay, class person or developer, anything for that matter. You are creating a class. You know that a class keyword is used for creating the class, right? And this is the name of the class. So the primary constructor will be part of the class header itself. So in the parenthesis, let's say if you are giving two parameters, okay, parameter 1 will come here, parameter 2 right here, okay. So let's say I want to create readable parameter name of type string maybe, okay, and the other parameter maybe age, and I want this to be mutable. Like I used val here so that the name cannot be changed. I feel like if we have some stuff in database, if we have name of the user, it shouldn't be like mutable. So I used val and var age, and age will be usually it's mostly of type integer, right? So yes, I mean after this you will have your class body, right? You will have your class body. So the block that you see here, which is surrounded by parenthesis, is your primary constructor. This entire block is your primary constructor. It's very simple, primary constructor and secondary constructor. So the primary constructor is part of the class header only. If you have some parameters to give, so it somewhere looks like function, no? I mean we write func, then name of the function, and then we pass parameters. So in the similar way, in the same fashion, if you have like, let's say you have to pass stuff, pass details, data of users or anything to classes, then this is quite interesting concept. So let me put it here. This whole part right here is your primary constructor. Clear? I hope this much part is clear. You now know what is primary constructor and how it is declared, right? It is part of the class header only. You write class, name of the class, and inside parenthesis you pass the parameters which is useful for the class body. Maybe you will use the name, age here inside the class body. So yes, I mean this is it about primary constructor. Let's move on now. Let's move on to the not so common constructor type, okay, and that is your secondary constructor. So yes, I mean if we talk about secondary constructor, the first thing you must know is these are not very common, okay. And secondly, I mean a class, if you have a class, okay, if you have a class, so it can contain one or more secondary constructor, okay, one or more secondary constructor, and these are created using the constructor keyword, using the constructor keyword, okay. Secondary constructors are not that common obviously, and the most common use of secondary constructor comes up when you need to extend a class, when you need to extend a class which provides multiple constructor, things become clear when we give examples. So one thing for sure here is, and that for secondary constructor they are not like part of the class header as in primary constructor. For secondary constructor we use the keyword constructor, but you would be thinking, I mean what the syntax is and how do we write it. So let me show you. If we have a class here, if we have class, and let's say name of the class is maybe person only, okay, person, and this is the starting point of the class, and this is the end parenthesis for the class. Then inside this I can have my secondary constructors, okay. I can create secondary constructor, and you know that we use the keyword constructor when we create secondary constructors. So I will write constructor, and after that I will simply pass on the parameters which I need in here. And the beauty of secondary constructor is you can have multiple constructors. You can have one or more. As I said here, you can have one or more secondary constructor. In primary, it is like we have to pass stuff here only, right? So in this case, you can have one or more. So if we go about like this, so this is your first constructor and this is your second constructor, not exactly constructor, secondary constructor. So here I can have like maybe one parameter of type string, okay, and or maybe instead of data, let's write, let me put eraser here, so I can write here something more meaningful, name of type string, and here I can have name of type string, and I can also have one more data, okay, I can have one more data, maybe age of type int, okay. So I have a class person here, and inside the class person I have two constructors. The first one is this one, I mean we don't have as such a specifically name, but this one is having one parameter, right? And this is the second constructor, secondary constructor, in which we are having two parameters, two variables, okay. And let's say that there is another class which want to maybe use this class, okay. So you can like extend the class as well. Let me show you how. Let me create a new page in here. So maybe if you have another class, okay, super, I mean I created a person, so maybe we can have something like super person, right, and starting and ending. So inside this, if you want to create a constructor which use the which first of all we need to extend this to person, then only we will be able to use the constructor of the person class. So if I want to use the constructor of the of this class, then maybe I want here data of type something, and then I will be like super is the keyword that you have to use here. That's it, that's all you have to do. If you have a class which extends a class, and this class has multiple secondary constructor, then in case if you want to use the constructor of this class, then super keyword is the go-to thing for you, okay, and you can just use super keyword. So I hope it's pretty much clear. Primary constructors, okay, it is part of the class header, no need to overthink or mess up your mind with how it is declared or anything like that. It's very much like functions only, class keyword, name of the class, and after that in the parenthesis you have to pass the parameter, and this part is your primary constructor. Secondary constructor, these are not so much common, but yes, if you have to use it, if you have to create it, you can have multiple secondary constructor inside the class. Inside one single class you can have multiple secondary constructors, and for creating secondary constructor you have to use the keyword constructor, okay. All right, now let's move ahead, and yes, this is kind of summary that you already know. In Kotlin we have primary constructor and secondary constructor. I hope you will not forget this in future, okay. All right, so how can you concatenate? This is second question. How can you concatenate two strings in Kotlin? So these are the, like, this is first of all the most common thing that you must know, what is a string concatenation. And after that we have these three methods. I'll explain each of these one by one, so don't worry about it. So if this is your string 1,
this is your string 2. So after concatenation you should have something like this. Another interesting example, maybe if you have let me pick pen. So if you have Android in here, this is a string 1, okay, this is string 1, and string 2 is developer. String 2 is developer. So after concatenation it will be Android developer, right? So basically string concatenation means you have to bring the strings which are available into one place, and the result will contain all these strings which you concatenated, okay, and the sequence will be the same as you would have mentioned. Like if I'll say, if this is, let's say, str2 and this is a string 1, and I say str2 plus str1, then I will get developer Android instead of Android developer. So the sequence will be same as you want, okay, perfect. So let's one by one discuss all these steps, 1, 2, 3. First is using a string interpolation, then using plus or the plus operator, and then using a string builder. Let's quickly summarize all of these. I'll get into the IDE, I'll get into the screen and show you quickly everything. Let me open up the IDE. So I'm using IntelliJ, okay, and you can use any IDE of your preference, of your choice. So I will click on empty project. I'll create an empty project here. Let's name it, we are learning stuff about strings in Kotlin, right? So let's write a string here, and I'll click on create. So once it is ready for me, I will maximize it, and here I will click on new, and I want to create a new Kotlin class or file, right? So I will create, maybe we can have a class of name whatever. I mean, we are learning a string concatenation, so let's name it concatenation, okay. Let's give it the name concatenation. Well, I don't want a class, I want a simple file, so let's keep it that way only. And inside this, okay, it's very small, let me make it big for you so it's visible. Okay, let's close all of these pop-ups. So I'll create a main function in here, and inside that let's learn all the ways of concatenating two strings in Kotlin. So string interpolation, right? Let me tell you what that is. Var keyword and then str1, that is string 1 is equal to so let's go about greetings. I mean, how do we greet people? We have like hello and then name of the person, right? So maybe we can have, instead of this, we can have a string name is Soumya, okay, and then we usually, if it was, let's say, Java, then we used to do greetings is equal to, we used to say hello, and we used to do something like this. And after this we can use the variable name directly, right? So name, and then plus if you want to put some exclamation mark, something like that, and then print ln, and you will write here greetings. Okay, so this is how we used to do in Kotlin, in Java mostly, like we used to write all this stuff. So let me tell you, if you have the name and you have this greeting template, hello, and the name of the user, then instead of so many double quotes, plus and all those stuff, you can remove all of these stuff and just put one double quote, and in here you can use the dollar symbol, okay, the dollar symbol, and write name and then exclamation mark or whatsoever. If you run this, it will give you the same result as the other code where you used plus plus and multiple double quotes. So you can see here it is hello Soumya, right? Perfect. So that is a string interpolation. And apart from that, what else? I talked about the plus icon, plus operator as well, or plus function. So this was your string interpolation. Apologies for the spelling, for the typos. And if we talk about plus, so var str1 is equal to hello world. Okay, let's try to concatenate hello world,
and we have world in here. So what should be the result? Result is equal to str1. It's so simple. I mean the plus thingy, right? str2. That's it, right? And then you can print the result, print ln, and the result. Okay, and the result. All right, and after that we have a string builder as well. String builder. And the same way in here, if you want to use let's say str1 dot plus, then you can do that as well. Both are very easy and simple to use. Either you can directly use the plus, the symbol, or you can use the plus method. Okay, let's do it this way. Now let's do a string builder. So where string builder is equal to a string builder, I'll initialize it. Okay, all right, and after that let's say I have to kind of concatenate these two strings only. Okay, so for that what I will do is string builder dot append the first string, that is string 1. Okay, then dot append, you can keep on appending the variables, the string that you want. And after that I want to print it, right? So where result 2, because result variable is already there, right? So result 2 is equal to string builder dot to string. You first need to convert it into a string, and then you can simply do print ln and result 2. That's it. Let's run it and see what are we getting. So hello Soumya, and after that we have hello world. The result of both of these are supposed to be same, right? Sounds good. Now what I will do is I'll get back to the iPad and we'll continue discussing the other important questions. Okay, so I hope the string concatenation part is clear to you. Okay, and if you have any doubts, just keep putting them in the comments, and if these are clear, then keep telling me that as well. So we just saw this string interpolation and the plus operator, and we saw the syntax of a string builder as well in Kotlin, right? Now what? Now let's move on to the next question, that is here. What do you understand about companion object in the context of Kotlin? So companion objects are important in Kotlin. Okay, so how are they important? So in some languages like Java, we have the static keyword. Okay, we have the static keyword which is used to declare class members and utilize them without creating an object, okay, by simply calling them by their class name. In Kotlin there is nothing called as a static keyword. Okay, there is nothing called as a static keyword. So if we want to achieve the functionality of a static member function, then we use the concept of companion objects in Kotlin. It is also referred as object extension. Okay, object extension. So yes, I mean the companion object, let me show you how do we create it. Syntax is very simple and straightforward. A new page is here. So it is like this. Let's say you have a class. Okay, you have a class and then name of the class, opening and ending. Then you can create companion object simply this way. The keyword companion object will be used. After this, it's not mandatory, but you can give the name of the object. Okay, you can give the name of the object and the code will come here. So companion object, in short it is kind of doing the responsibilities. It is playing the role of a static keyword here in Kotlin. A static we used to have in Java. If you have used Java, if you know Java, a static keyword you would be knowing. So companion object is playing the role of a static here in Kotlin. Perfect. Moving ahead, yes, this is this is same as what I just wrote. If this is the class name, let's say, and this is extending some app compat activity class. So inside companion object you have the const val letter and then other stuff are there. This is the syntax. The companion object, to create companion object you have to use the keyword. You have to use the keyword companion object. All right, let's move ahead. Explain about the when keyword. So the when keyword in Kotlin is used to substitute the switch operator in Java. Okay, so in Java we used to have switch, and this was the syntax of switch. So switch and one kind of condition here, and then let's say if the value here is 1, 2 or 3, anything like that. So we'll have cases like case 1, case 2, and this will be default case. If the value here matches with either of these cases, then we used to run that piece of code, right? So basically when we'll do the same thing in Kotlin. So when a certain condition is met, when a certain condition is met, a specific block of code must be run, right? So it is same like when a specific condition, a certain condition is met, then we used to run a certain piece of block, a specific block of code, right? So inside the when expression as well, like this will be your when expression. So inside the when expression, it compare all of the branches one by one until a match is discovered. So when this, let's say we have 3 here, so if any condition matches here, then we will like find the first match and then it will proceed to the running that particular code block. All right, so yes, after finding the first match, it proceeds to the conclusion of the when block and then executes the code immediately following the when block. We do not need a break statement here, like in switch we used to have break statements, right, to break the execution of the code. But here in case of when, we don't need, no break statement is needed. We don't need break statement at the end of each case, unlike switch cases in Java or in any other programming language. So basically when in Kotlin will do the same thing as switch in Java or any other programming language for that matter, right? Perfect. What is the equivalent of Java static methods in Kotlin? So we just saw that for static in Kotlin we have companion object, but we have other stuff as well. So companion object is first, then package level functions, and then we have objects. Okay, and then we have object. So moving ahead, as in Java, can we use the new keyword? Can we use the new keyword to instantiate a class object in Kotlin? So the answer is here no. In Kotlin we don't have to use the new keyword to instantiate a class object. If you want to instantiate a class object, you can simply do something like var and then maybe the variable name and just do class name. I mean just call the class, okay, class name. That's it. No need to use the new keyword. Perfect. How to create a singleton class in Kotlin. Now this is very important and interesting. Singleton class in Kotlin. So a singleton class, first let's understand what it is. So it is a class that is defined in such a way that only one instance of the class can be created and is used where we need only one instance of the class, like maybe in database connections or logging, such are the application of it. So singleton, the name is also self-explanatory, singleton, right? So only one instance can be created for singleton classes. And to create a singleton class, you need to use the object keyword. So object and the name of the class. However you go about it, like however you create the class, you can do that. But the most important thing here is you have to use the object keyword. Okay. Alright, how to check if late init variable has been initialized or not initialized. So it's pretty easy and interesting. I already taught you in the last module what is what is late init variable, right? So later on, if you have to check if it has been initialized or not, then all you have to do is use is initialized method. Okay, you have to use the is initialized method. For example, let me show you. So maybe if you have a class, okay, you have a class person here, and then you have a late init variable, late init var name of type string. Okay, then inside your function, let's say you have a function named xyz, and inside this you want to check like if it is initialized or not, then all you have to do is you have to, let's say I want to print it, so print ln name dot is initialized. So it will return true if it has been initialized, otherwise it will return false, right? Otherwise it will return false. What to understand by sealed classes in Kotlin? So like Kotlin introduces a very crucial and new form of classes that is not seen in Java, and that is your sealed classes. These are like referenced as sealed classes. The name is also quite unique, right? So as the name implies, it adhere to constrained or bounded classes, right? A sealed class, like sealed means something which is bounded. So sealed class is the one that has a set of subclasses, when it is known ahead of time that a type will conform to one of the subclass type, it is employed. I mean, it's a bit tough to understand, but let me make it simple for you. So 2-3 important properties of sealed class include: number 1, it is there to ensure type safety. Now you will ask me, what is type safety, right? So type safety, that is, the compiler will validate types during compilation and throw an exception if a wrong type has been assigned to a variable. That is type safety. It is like a fundamental thing in programming. So sealed classes are there to ensure type safety, okay, so that there are less errors, crashes, etc. because of this issue. And apart from that, another interesting thing to note about sealed classes is by default the constructors in sealed classes are private. And if you want to understand the syntax of sealed classes, so talking about the syntax of sealed classes, we just have to put an extra keyword in like while creating the class name. So if we have class and then name of the class is, let's say, person, so we will put just one extra keyword, and that is your sealed. So that will make sure that the class is a sealed class. Not very commonly used, but yes, it's good to know these important, terms and keywords in Kotlin. If you are going to give an interview for the role of Android application developer, or if you are going to give interview for software engineering but specifically for Android team, then this tutorial will be very helpful for you. You can use this as your revision point. You can revise all the important questions and concepts for your interview. So let's get started. Number 1, the very first question is, what are sensors in Android? So in Android devices, there are plenty of built-in sensors. They are used for different purposes, like for measuring temperature, or for understanding the position of the device, etc. I mean, there are plenty of divisions, like there are plenty of types when we talk about the sensors in Android. So there are like parameters on basis of which these are divided are motion, to check the motion of the device, the orientation, or temperature and such physical conditions as well. So these sensors help to monitor the positioning, the movement of the device with high accuracy. And like many of these are inbuilt only, and they can be both software, as well as hardware based in nature. And the three like prominent categories are here when we talk about sensors in Android. The categories are position, motion, and environmental sensors. These are the main three type of sensor. So the name is a bit self-explanatory here, but still let's see what each of these do. Okay, so position sensor, it is used to measure the physical position of the Android device. Okay, and these include like orientation sensors or magnometers. And if you talk about motion sensors, so these sensors include gravity, rotational activity, and acceleration sensor. Okay, that means it measure the rotation of the device or the acceleration and parameters related to it. Okay, and talking about the environmental sensor, so it includes sensor that measure temperature, pressure, humidity, some environmental factors, and others as well. Like there are multiple environmental factors. So the environmental sensor is used to measure such parameters. Now moving ahead to the second question, how do you find memory leaks in an application on the Android platform? Very important question. So the Android device manager, that is your ADM, Android device manager, full form for ADM. This kind of helps to find memory leaks in an application on Android. So when you open ADM in Android Studio, if you have been developing Android application, you would be knowing that we use Android Studio, right? So when you open ADM in Android Studio, you can see parameters like heap size or memory analysis along with other parameters when you run the project. So these parameters are very important in ADM. Like when you will open up ADM in Android Studio, you will see these parameters, and these are the ones which help you find memory leaks in an application. Perfect. And the third question is, state the component which are must for a new Android project. So I think you should be able to answer it on your own, because you would have created multiple Android project, right? That's why you are here in this tutorial, to understand the concepts and everything. So let's still go through each of these. Sometimes it happens that we know the concept, we have the knowledge, we know the stuff, but we are not able to communicate properly, right? So state the components which are must for a new Android project. So the very first one is manifest file, right? Secondly, we have the build directory, right? Then inside that, we have multiple files again, but let's first check at the upper level what are the important directories and files which are must for it. So you can kind of, in this question, if someone asks you this, you can go through the structure of the Android project. So we have manifest file which contain information like permissions, we have permission, user permission, whatever is there in the app, you will mention all of these here. Then icon or name of your application. Apart from that, which activity will be the launcher activity. Like sometimes we have to change to splash activity from main activity as the launcher activity. So those stuff you can modify, you can check from the manifest file. Then you have build, and then src directory is there, right, which contain all the code and resources. Apart from that, you have res directory which contain non-code resources like bitmap images or UI strings, all those stuff. And then you have assets as well, So these are kind of important files. And in assets, I mean, it contains a file. It contains a file which can be converted to an APK file as well. Then APK file you can share with someone who want to, let's say, run your application in your phone, in his or her phone. If the application is not yet live on Google Play Store, still they want to check it, then you can share APK file. So inside essay there is a file which can be converted to APK. So we have manifest, build, src. So inside build we have that Gradle file, right, in which we add all the dependencies, the third-party dependencies, right? Third-party dependencies, like for images you have Picasso. If you deal with APIs, etc., you have retrofit, Wally, etc. And then you have source directory, res, and assets. Moving ahead, we have to name the different data storage options which are available on the Android platform. So number one, shared preferences. Okay, so it stores data in XML files. Okay, and then you have SQLite, which is very famous, right? It stores structured data in private databases. And then you have internal storage as well. Internal storage, so you can store the data in the device file itself. Like you would have seen, if you have some application, even WhatsApp and other such stuff, they kind of create a folder in the device itself. In your Android device, you will find some folders with the name WhatsApp or com dot something like that, the package name, right, inside file manager, I think. So yes, I mean, you can store stuff in the storage of the device as well. And then you have external storage as well, in case you are interested. It stores the data in the file system, but it can be accessed to all apps in the device, right? Not specifically to that particular app. So if there are some data which you feel should be accessible by all other apps in the phone, then external storage. Apart from that, you have Firebase as well, right? You have Firebase as well, which is very handy and easy, so you can explore that as well. So these are the kind of different data storage options which are available for the Android platform. Perfect. Explain AIDL. So it is important. AIDL, you should first of all know the full form. The full form is Android Interface definition language. Android Interface Definition Language. It is a tool that let user abstract away. It is a tool that lets users abstract away IPC. Not very common term, I would say, but you must know. It is a tool that lets user abstract away IPC. Now you will ask me, what is IPC? So using IPC, the client and the service both, communicate with each other, and this AIDL facilitates that communication. Facilitates that communication. So in short, you can say AIDL is a tool. It is a tool that lets user abstract away IPS. Okay, not very commonly asked, but yeah, some interviewer might ask you these abbreviations or such terms which are not so common. So apart from AIDL, define the architecture of Android. So if you know the architecture, let me know in the comment. If not, let's discuss here. So when we talk about the architecture of Android, so it consists of 5 main components. Okay, let's discuss on a new page. So the first one is Linux kernel. Okay, And then you have platform libraries, Android runtime, okay, then Android applications, and finally you have the Android framework. Let's quickly these are first of all 5 components which you must know by name. So let's quickly see what is the function etc of these. So talking about Linux kernel, it forms the basis of the Android platform, and this powers features like memory and power management and various drivers as well. So it serves as abstraction layer before the other layers, okay. And then you have platform libraries. So Android's platform libraries are native C and C++ libraries, and they provide support for graphic and media and WebKit libraries as well. So it allows developers to implement graphic functionality and display the web content display, etc. All these stuff are possible because of these platform libraries. And then Android runtime, this is also called as ART, and the core libraries are among the most significant part of the architecture. It serves as the foundation for the application framework and has features like optimized garage collection. And then you have Android application. This is what we see when we use our phone. Then we have those icons, we have applications, right? And yes, like core applications include inbuilt ones like SMS or email, some contacts. These are the pre-installed apps which we see in our application before installing, Zomato, Amazon, all those stuff. We have these pre-installed applications, yeah. And then we have application framework. This is not Android, this is application, okay. This is application. So the application framework contains classes that are used in the creation of the application. It contains classes which is used for creating the applications, okay. All right, so these are the 5 main components when we talk about the architecture of Android. The very first, we have Linux kernel. It forms the basis of all the components. We have platform libraries. So C++ libraries, all these are native. All these are part of platform libraries, and it helps in graphics, media, all those stuff. Like we are able to see things like web content, etc. All this is possible because of these libraries. Then Android runtime, it is most significant component of the architecture, and it forms the foundation of this. And then we have Android application. This is kind of self-explanatory. You can explain it. You use applications in day-to-day life, right? So you can explain how the applications are, what are the pre-installed or kind of inbuilt applications present. These are the ones which are already installed and present. And then you have Android framework. It contains classes which are used for developing the application. Perfect. I hope this much part is clear, right? Moving ahead, this is very important question, I would say. This is very, very important. So is there any difference between activities and services? Obviously, yes, there are differences between both of these. So activities, in short, let me tell you. So activity is something which you see on your app's screen. Like whatever you see on your app screen, the page, the activity, the screen, that is your activity. This is very much related to UI. I mean, it is all about what you see on the screen. And when you talk about services, they are made and they are supposed to run in the background, Okay, now let's talk about the differences in detail. Activity and services. Okay, so if you talk about activity, so it is entry point. It is entry point for interacting with users, right? It represents a single screen. It represents a single screen with a UI. For example, if you open up, let's say, an email application, okay, so you see some cards with inboxes, right? Some new mails. If you are on the inbox menu, so you will see new mails. So that screen, that first screen is your activity only. That's one activity. And if you click on compose button and you open up a new screen, so that is a new screen. And let's say Paytm app as well. Paytm is an application for money sending, etc., right? So there as well, let's say you are on the home button, so that is one screen. When you click on pay now or send money, so that will be a different screen. So those are, whatever you see, that is your screen. Now talking about services. General purpose entry point for keeping an app running in the background for multiple reasons. Let's say you are using a music app, right? So it is supposed to run in the background, like Spotify. You can run, start the music, run the music, and continue using some other app, continue chatting, messaging, sending messages on WhatsApp, etc. So these are made for background. I mean, there are multiple stuff which are supposed to keep running in the background, so services are for that purpose. Okay, it is a component that runs in the background to perform long running operations or to perform work for remote processes. A service does not provide a UI. It does not provide a UI to the user. Okay, it has no UI UX. For example, a service might play music in the background, right? Or maybe perform some download upload operation in the background. So you would have seen multiple times some download upload going on in the background in the notification manager. You would have seen, right? So that is kind of role of services only. And yes, it has UI. It has no UI UX, right? This is meant for background stuff, and this is meant for like mainly how the user is interacting, right? For interaction purpose. And this is very important for user experience, right? So activities are very important for user experience. And yes, that's pretty much it when we talk about the differences between both. And moving ahead, what are Android frameworks? So Android frameworks, these are set of APIs. These are a set of APIs that make the development process, easier. It makes the dev process easier. Developers can write apps quickly because APIs provide tools like text fields, intents, etc. It is essentially a software toolkit that allows for quick construction of the skeleton of an application. Okay, so basically Android framework are set of APIs which help the developers developing the application in an easy manner, in an efficient manner. The development process becomes very easy and smooth with the help of these Android frameworks. Alright, I hope these are sorted. You know what is Android framework, set of APIs to make our life easy, activities and services. These are the architecture of Android. Mainly 5 things are here for different, there are layers, right? The basic is the Linux kernel, and last one Android framework, Android app, you already know. So AIDL, Android interface definition language, It is a tool that lets user abstract any IPs. That's it. Not very common thing. And you should know what are the different ways of storing data, because in an interview, if you are going, they would be having the application for their company, for their clients, right? And obviously when there are application, when there are users, so storing the data in a good manner, in a good way is important. And that's why you will indeed get questions around database, how to manage data in the Android. So you can go in deep as well. You can develop application using each of these or any one of these, whatever you prefer. Okay, and moving ahead, we have to explain the Android activity life cycle with example. So this is kind of very important fundamental question, and I would say it's kind of $1 million question if you're going to give an interview for specifically Android application development role. This is the activity life cycle for an Android application. So in this universe, everything has a life cycle. If you talk about simple water bottle, right? So water bottle also has a life cycle. It is manufactured in the industry, chemicals, etc. are mixed, and then it is used by us, by human beings, and then it is destroyed. In the same way, the Android applications that we use, like Gmail, Zomato, YouTube, etc. we use for chatting, for entertainment purpose, for looking at tweets, etc. There are so many things that we do using these applications, right? So that also has a life cycle. Like as user, we just open up the app. So as soon as it is opened up, in the background some operations are going on, some methods are being called, and as a developer, for us it's important to know what those methods are. When a user is opening up the app, when the user is minimizing, when the user is destroying the app from the memory, what all is going on from the code perspective. For users, it's nothing. Like they are chatting, watching videos, and then they are minimizing it, switching to other applications, or completely destroying it from the memory, clearing cache, etc. So let's talk about the methods. Let's talk about the code perspective behind the life cycle of an Android application. It's very important. Okay, so as soon as the activity is launched, let's say you click on the YouTube app. Okay, so the very first method that is called is on create, then on start, and then on resume. So first thing first, on create is called. It is used to create the screen, create the page. Okay, because most of the apps have this splash screen as the first screen. So when you click on that icon, when a new screen comes up, then in the background, on create, on start, on resume, these methods are called one by one, back to back, one after another. So on create, that means the page, the screen is created. Okay, then it starts it, and then on resume. Okay, you are let's say watching the video, so on resume will be called. So activity is now running. Okay, and let's say you are watching a tutorial on YouTube. Okay, let's say you are watching this tutorial only to revise all the concepts, and suddenly you see a message from your friend that, hey, let's come to my birthday party at this place. Okay, so you got a ping from, let's say, WhatsApp. That's another application. You are right now on YouTube, you are learning something new, you are watching a tutorial, and then you got a message that, hey, today's my birthday, let's join us in the birthday party. Okay, so what you will do, you will immediately, like if you click on that notification, you switch to another application, then what will happen to this one? What will happen to the one which you are using? So here on pause will be called. That is, it will pause the operations which are going on, and the activity will be no longer visible to you. YouTube will be no longer visible because you are now on WhatsApp, you are chatting with your friends. And then on stop will be called. Okay, on stop will be called. Once you are done replying to them, maybe you are saying you are busy and you cannot come, you are done with chatting, etc., you will again come back to YouTube. So once you come back, when you come back, then on restart is called. After on stop, on restart is called. It is restarting everything, it is restarting the page. And then again on start, on create, because it was already created, the screen was already created, the page was already created. So after on restart, it will again call on start and on resume. You will continue watching the tutorial, on resume is going on. Then if again you want to go back to another application, then on pause, on stop will be called. If you'll come back, then on restart, right? So you like when you click the home button,
then usually what happens, in the memory the application is still there. In the memory the app is kind of running only, and if you want to, let's say, close the app completely, maybe you are checking the distance between your house to the destination where your friends are celebrating the birthday party, etc. So you will, let's say, open up the Google Maps application, you will check the distance, etc. You will check the route, and then many times we click on back button. So what does that perform, what does that do? We are kind of completely destroying the activity, we are completely destroying the application. It is a good practice to save the memory, right? So in that case, let's say you're opening up Google Maps, okay? So on create, on start, on resume, one by one, back to back, these three will be called, and then activity is running, but you are still kind of using only activity is running, but you are not kind of going back to another application. So this cycle, like on pause, on stop, these will be not there. But suddenly, like, you feel that okay, I'm done with the application, it's done, I have checked the route, then you will click back, okay, you will continue pressing back button. So in that case, what will happen, on pause, operation will be paused, then on stop, activity is finishing or being it is kind of not visible to you, okay, it's not visible to you. And then once you press the last back button, then on destroy, the activity is shut down, it's even not in the memory, okay? So that's how the process is. But if you just press the home button, then on pause, on stop, but it will still be in the memory, and if you want to go back to that application, then on start will be called. But if you completely want to destroy it, then you press back, and that's how it's completely destroyed. It's not even in the memory, right? It's not even in the memory. So that's kind of the summary for this, the activity life cycle. This is very, very important. And now here priority, etc. comes into picture. It's not too much important, it's not kind of integral part. If you talk about methods, so number one, first method, second method, third method, these are always, any time when you open up any application, these three will be called. Then this is fourth method, fifth method, sixth method, and seven. There are total 7 methods which you must know how they are functioning. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, okay? So these are always called whenever you open the screen, open the page, and when you are willing to go back to another app, or you are pressing back button, on pause, on stop will be called. If you completely want to destroy, on destroy. If you want to reopen, then on restart will be called. So this is the life cycle of any Android application that you use in your day-to-day life. So if you have doubts about the life cycle or any of these abbreviations or terms, keywords that we discussed about, let me know and I will try to answer most of them. So let's get started in the tutorial. Number 1, describe different type of services in Android. So before discussing the types of services, let me tell you what services are. So services are very special component in Android. Why they are important? Because this is the component that helps us run background tasks, For example, if you have to perform some download upload operation, okay, you have to perform such operation which do not require interaction with the user, like user is not supposed to press or click on button, or they're not supposed to see it, like it can keep going on in the background. Then for such purposes, services are very, very important. And like in our day-to-day life as well, like we use so many applications. For example, music, right? Most of us use Spotify. So if you have to use WhatsApp, if you have to switch to another application, LinkedIn, Twitter, anything, so in the background, like you have seen, music continues playing, but you are busy using some other application, right? So that is kind of the best example of services. The main aim of services is to ensure that the app remains active in the background, so that the user can perform multiple tasks like we do in our daily lives, right?
And if you talk about the types of services, there are three main types of services. Number one is your foreground service, number two is your background service, and at number three is your bound service. Foreground, background, and bound services. These are the three types of services. Moving ahead, how would you communicate between two fragments? So this is kind of one of the most favorite interview questions of interviewers. Like, we have used fragments while creating applications, right? If you haven't, you can check out my past tutorials and you'll get good idea of it. So to communicate between two fragments, there are two ways. There are two most commonly used ways. Number one is using view models, and number two, the method two, is using interfaces. View models and interfaces. Using these two, we can communicate between two fragments, okay, view models and interfaces. So it might happen that even after giving the answer that there are two ways, via interface or via view model, interviewer might ask you to show by live coding, like to show them by writing code in Android Studio or IDE, right, that how you can actually do it, like create some fragments and do this with the help of some example. For that thing, I would say just give it a try, create a project and try to make sure that you are well aware that how to actually implement the interface as well as view model method to transfer the data, or maybe one is also enough, but you must know either of these, like how to transfer data between, how to communicate between two fragments via either of these method. Okay, if you want me to do it, let me know in the comment and I will make a separate tutorial for this as well. Okay, it's important, I mean, you must know it. So moving ahead, explain the dialog boxes which are supported on Android. Explain the dialog boxes supported on Android. So in Android, there are these four like dialog boxes which are supported. Number one is your alert dialog, okay. Number two is date picker dialog, and then you have time picker dialog, and finally progress dialog. So here the names are a bit self-explanatory, but still let me tell you a few features of these. So alert dialog, it supports 0 to 3 buttons, along with a list of selectable items like a radio button or check boxes. Okay, talking about date picker dialog, it's self-explanatory. I mean, it is used for the selection of date by the user. Okay, and time picker dialog, it is used for selection of time by the user. And progress dialog, it is used to display progress bar. You would have seen some sort of progress bar in many applications, right? So yes, it is used to show progress, like maybe like quickly, some example is not coming up in my mind, but we have seen many times. So sometimes we want to show progress of something in the application, in the UI, right? So that's where progress dialogs are used. And this is a rough figure of all the components which are there in the dialog boxes. So this is the icon of the dialog box, this is the title, and you have the message. This is called neutral button, and this is called negative button, and it is positive button. So if you are saying you know, are you sure you want to exit the app? So sometimes when you press back, so the application developers kind of show this sort of pop-up, are you sure you want to exit it? So you have some buttons like yes, no. So that's where positive button, negative button, and neutral button, these comes into picture. And moving ahead, what are intents and how many type of total intents are present in Android? So this is very fundamental question, I would say. I mean, when you would have started your journey developing application, so you would have studied it, but many times it happens that even we kind of skip or forget the fundamental concepts as well. So let me help you summarize it, let me help you revise it. So what are intents? Intents are there to help you move from one screen to the other screen. So let's say if you are using a page and you have a button, you are on one page, one screen which says maybe welcome or something like that. So on clicking, when you open up, when you reach a new page, this is screen 1, and this is screen 2. So this transition from one screen to the other screen is done by intents. And even in such cases, like if you are using an application and they have shown a button that see direction or see location, and when you click it, you are directed to some map like some app like Google Maps or something like that. Basically you click a button and you are directed to another application. So that is also example of intent. There are two types of intent, right? You know what intents are. To move from one screen to the other screen, intents are needed. Number one is your explicit intent. If you have to move within your application, then that is called as explicit intent. Okay, like this is first screen, and from first screen if you have to go to the second screen, that is your explicit intent. So basically explicit intent is about staying in the same app but moving on to different screens. Maybe if we take example of, let's say, WhatsApp, so you see a list of contacts, right, to chat, to talk to, like this is WhatsApp. So you have some like options here, and after that you have list of contact. There are card views, right, profile and chat, profile chat. So this is one screen, this is screen one. Now when you click on a particular contact, let's say you want to chat to, you want to talk to this person, you will click on this. So you will be redirected to a new page, the person profile, the name, and then you will have the chat here, his her message, your message, like that, right? So that is the example of explicit intent. You are staying in the same app, this is a screen 2, this is also WhatsApp, this is also WhatsApp. So in the same app you are moving from one screen to the another, that is explicit intent. And if you are moving to a new application from your application, that is implicit intent. For example, let's say if you are using some app in which you have to play media, and when you ask like when you click on that button, play or play the video, play the media, and it asks you do you want to play it using this app or that app. So this is example of implicit intent. If you click on Ghana, so the video will play on the Ghana app or play music, right? So that's what the example of implicit intent. In this one, you are moving from one screen to another screen, but the apps are different. This is app 1, this is app 1. From this app you will move to another screen, and that screen will be of app 2. Okay, so explicit meaning within the app you are moving the screens, you are switching between screens, but implicit means you are switching between screens but of different apps. Okay, perfect. What are the different tools which are available in Android development? We have to explain their functions. Okay, let's quickly do it. So there are multiple tools actually which are available in Android. Number one is your Android SDK, that is your software development kit, and also the virtual device manager. So this tool is used to generate and handle the virtual devices and SDKs. And through the emulator in the AVD you can specify supported SDK and all those stuff. So this is one component, this is one tool, Android SDK, the software development kit. I think most of the things that we use come from the software development kit only, right? And you have virtual device manager to handle virtual devices, etc. Let me make a new page so that I can explain easily. So number one we saw SDK, right? Number two is your emulator. So emulator most of you would have used while developing the application, Android application. So like when you create an application, you want to run it to check how it will actually look on a device, on an Android phone. That's where you check emulator, right? So basically emulator is implementation of virtual machine only. It is designed to run processes within a virtual environment that resembles your smartphone, and the main use of this is testing and debugging the apps that we developers create. Okay, Number 3 is your ADB. ADB, that is Android Debug Bridge. Android Debug Bridge. It is a command line debugging application doled out with the SDK. It enables developer to communicate with the device, and facilitate action like debugging or installation of the application. Okay, and at number 4 is AAPT, that is your Android Asset Packaging Tool. Android Asset Packaging Tool. It builds the .apk distributable Android package file. So these are the 4 important components: SDK, emulator, ADB, that is your Android Debug Bridge, and AAPT, that is your Android Asset Packaging Tool. Moving ahead, what are retained fragments? So the name is telling that something is retained in the fragment, like we are storing something, retaining something, right? So yes, retained fragments, these take advantage of the fact that a fragment's view can be destroyed and recreated without having to destroy the complete fragment itself. Okay, so what it does for us, how it's useful for us. So if you set a parameter, set retain instance, if you set this parameter as true, then the fragment's state will be retained. It will not be destroyed no matter what you do. If you do orientation changes, if you do configuration changes, like if you are using the app and you are rotating it like from vertical to horizontal, you are changing the view, configuration, etc., then also the instance will be retained, like it will not lose the data. Let's say you were horizontally watching a YouTube video and you were at timestamp 15 and you moved it, you made it like vertical, then also it will remain at the same place, like it will retain it. Why? Because it is taking advantage of the fact that fragments view can be destroyed as well as recreated without having to destroy the complete fragment. Okay, so retain fragment, you can recall this with the help of this retain word only. It is trying to retain something. Even if you change the orientation and do stuff, then also it will retain the information. If you set this parameter as true, set retain instance. Okay, what is Android data binding? So it is a support library that allows you to bind UI component in your layouts to data sources. Okay, to data sources in your app using a declarative format rather than programmatically. Okay, so layouts are like often defined in activities with code that calls UI framework method, right? So basically, in short, you can say Android data binding, it helps you to bind the UI with the data without using program or code, etc. Perfect. And what is job scheduler? Again, very important concept in Android. So job scheduler API, it helps schedule background tasks. It helps us schedule background tasks which are executed in the application. Let's say if you have to give some condition, if the app, if the phone in which the app is, if that's connected to power, if Wi-Fi is there, and if you have some certain conditions, then only this particular background task should be executed. If you have to schedule something like that, or maybe some of the scheduling etc. are done at a fixed time, like WhatsApp, it's said that at 2 a.m. in the midnight they perform some data backup, such operations, right? So if there are some background tasks which are supposed to be performed at a specific time, then in such cases job scheduler is very helpful. It helps you schedule the background tasks. Okay, moving ahead,
what is view binding and can you implement and show it. So we just saw about view binding. It's there to connect, you know, the data to the UI, but let's try to implement it, how it's done and everything. So earlier we used to kind of identify the views using find view by ID, this syntax, this parameter. Okay, we used to write kind of unnecessary code. I mean, in Java, if you used to do in 10 lines, you can do in 5 lines in Kotlin using even find view by ID. But even if it's not there, even if you don't have to do find view by ID for each and everything, let's say in your screen, if you have one image view, one text view, one button, so for each of this, like this is kind of limited view, but if there are more, you have to do 1, 2, 3 times find view by ID, right? And if the components are more, then even like 10, 20, 25 find view by IDs, that sounds kind of insane, right? I mean, there is no use of writing unnecessary code, and that's where and how this came into picture. You can directly call the view by the name, by its ID, if you implement view binding. So let's get into the screen and see how it's done. Before that, I would like to tell you a bit of theory of it. Let's try to read from the official documentation only how it is and why it is. If I type here view binding, okay, view binding Android, yes, so this is the official documentation of theirs, and if you click on this, so they will tell you that why they created it, etc. So view binding is a feature. It is a feature that makes it easier to write code that interact with views. Once view binding is enabled in a module, it generates binding class for each XML layout file present in that module. So if in your application you have to use views, okay, so we know that we have those XML files in our app, right? So corresponding to each XML file, if you incorporate view binding now, if you use view binding in your application, so corresponding to each XML file, it will create some view binding classes, and with the help of which you will be able to use the views in each and every XML file directly into your source code, into your .kt or .java file. You will not need to write find view by ID multiple times. In most cases, it replaces find view by ID. This is the most useful and the most common thing which it offers. Okay, people use it for that purpose. So we have to kind of just add this line in our build.gradle. It is telling us that just add this piece of code in our build.gradle and you will be all good to go. So let's open up Android Studio and try to implement it, because might happen that the interviewer asks you to implement few stuff, like as I told you, like for the fragment communication as well, there are 2 ways, interfaces and view model. So they might ask you to implement as well. So this one, let's try to do it. And I'll open our new project and I will call it binding. Okay, I'll call it binding, and everything is good. Let's click on finish, and in the background you will see some download etc happening. So meanwhile, let's do one thing. We will just copy it and we will put it in our build.gradle file. Okay, let's wait for the download, everything to happen. Tip of the day: you can inject SQL into string literal. These are good. I mean, I get to learn lot many things with this. So you can see in the background the Gradle builds, all those stuff are happening. So it's kind of obvious and understood. I mean, it is a heavy software, so it downloads all those stuff, the third-party dependencies etc that's there. Android Studio allow you to easily call a Java code from Kotlin. You can see, I mean, Java and Kotlin can both go hand in hand. Let's close the tips and let's close this one as well. The downloads, everything is done. So here what I will do, I'll go in the Gradle scripts. Okay, I'll open up the build.gradle, and here you have the build types. So maybe just below this, just below the build type, let's add the build features view binding as true. Okay, once you add this, then you just have to click on sync now, so that all the important dependencies or whatever it needs
is in your project in the studio. Okay, perfect. I think it's done. And as soon as you add it, so what it does is it kind of create binding files, binding classes for each of your layout. So right now if you go in your resource layout, you have one activity main, so it would have created activity main binding for this one, for this project, sorry, for this screen UI. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let me show you how we do it. Let me add ID for it. So I'll give it text view, text only. Okay, let's give it the ID text. And after this, let's go to main activity. So here what I will do, I will create a parameter, I will create a variable to be specific of type that class. Which class? The class which the view binding has created for activity main.xml, and that class would be activity main binding dot java kt something. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, let's create, I'll name it binding. Okay, and it should be of type activity main binding, this one. Okay, so now it is telling me that either I should initialize this variable or I should use late init var, that is I'll tell it late init, I'll initialize you later in the project. So right now I cannot initialize it, I want to do it later only, so I will add the late init keyword here. Okay, and once I come here, what I will do, I will, as promised above, as promised here, I will initialize it, I'll give it some value. So let's initialize it, activity main binding dot inflate, and here if you do command P, we have to give layout inflator. So we'll give it from the get layout inflator method. Okay, if you see here, it is from the get layout inflator method, right? Just press enter. So the very first thing you did is you created a variable binding of type activity main binding. What is this? So activity main binding is the class that view binding has created for this screen, Okay, so after that I will initialize binding. Binding is equal to activity main binding dot inflate. You just have to call the dot inflate method, and these are not the steps which I am creating. I mean, all these steps are already mentioned here in the doc. If you see the steps, etc., yes, use view binding in the activities. So they are saying that the first thing you have to do is create this variable of type of the type same as it has created for your activity. If the activity name is, let's say, activity result profile, then the class name would be something like result profile binding, right? So it auto creates it. I mean, you don't have to do anything. Once you add it in the build.gradle, no, once you add it, once you enable it in the build.gradle, it will do everything for you. As soon as you will create a new XML, it will create a automatic new binding file for it, new binding class for it. So very first thing, you have to create this variable, you have to initialize it. They have said you have to call the inflate method. Okay, and after that, what you have to do, you have to get the root, I mean, you have to get the view this way, binding.root, and you have to set the content view with it. So don't worry, let me explain you here. So binding step number one, we'll create the binding variable. Step 2, we will initialize it, and the last step is, instead of setting the content view with r.layout, what we will do, binding, this is the variable dot get root. That's it, that's all you have to do, and you are all set. Step number 1, create the variable of type binding class, and then initialize it by calling the inflate method. And step 3, set the content view by calling the root method on binding.root. That's it. After that, you don't have to do that old method like text view is equal to find view by id, this is of type text view, and then you have to write the r.id the old thing. You don't have to do so much. I mean, if there are, let's say, hundreds of views in your one screen, it's kind of so hard to do this, right? So now you can simply do it. Binding dot, the ID for this one is text, right? So just write binding dot text dot set on click listener. If you want to perform some action when this is clicked, then set on click listener and write the code whatever, write the code whatever you want on pressing this text view, on pressing of this text view, on this text view. So it's pretty much simple and straightforward, I would say. I mean, you just have to follow these 3 steps that I told you. Step 0 is obviously to add this in your project, to add the view binding, step 0. And then step 1 is to create a variable of type binding class and then initialize it using the inflate method, and then you have to set the content view by calling the root method on binding, and that's it, you are done. So if someone asks you to implement the binding thingy, you can do it and just tell them that the benefit of this is we are replacing the find view by ID, the old method of getting views and dealing with views. Okay, so that's the use of view binding, as it's said in the documentation as well, that in most cases it replaces find view by ID. So that's pretty much it. If you want me to implement some more concepts, some tough concepts, etc., just keep telling us in the comment and we'll take the feedback, we'll accept the feedback and we'll work upon it.
I hope this detailed module was helpful for you. If yes, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to Scalar's YouTube channel for more such insightful content.